This is the Lakin Chronicles Road to Recovery podcast with addiction recovery specialist Dr. Greg Lakin. Real people, real stories, real addiction, and real recovery journeys. The road to recovery starts now.
All right, another episode. Hey, I have a gentleman here, and I'm real excited about it. KELSEY. KELSEY decided once again that for no other purpose than to help people hear your story and maybe inspire them or educate them to get treatment if they need it, or let them know that it can be done. And so thank you for showing up and telling us your story.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess let's just get to the very beginning of when drugs entered your life and how it progressed.
Well, I was about 18, or actually I was 19. I had just graduated high school, and I grew up riding my bike, and I was just out goofing around on my bike, and ended up having a pretty bad accident, and fractured my skull and broke my collarbone in a couple places, and that's kind of where it started from there. And I used pills just because, the pain and whatnot, and then it just became afterwards, your pain dwindles, but you think it's still there. It feels like phantom pain or whatever the case is, and it just became something that I used. And then after that, it didn't really, I dealt with the pain from the shoulder, and I never really got healed. And about a year after that, I had another surgery on my shoulder. They're going to re-break it and plate it because they didn't do that in the beginning. So during the meantime, I off and on used. I knew people who had them, or I'd take them from mom and dad.
And these are just like
little cabinet.
Percocets,
tabs. Just little Lortabs. I got prescribed Lortabs, I think it was. Or I first got prescribed Percocets, and I think my mom told me that I got sick on them. I don't quite remember, but I think it was a lot from the head injury as well. But during that time, I had friends, we used them. It was a little, here and there. It wasn't an everyday thing. And then probably not until, I was trying to get into the military, and me and 3 friends of mine, we all decided to go and join together. Well, they all got in, and I got disqualified because of a head injury. So for 3 years, I had to wait. I had to run several different tests. I had to get, different CAT scans. I had to have EKG. I had to have an MRI. I mean, there were several tests that came out of my pocket just so I could get in the military. And it's something I really wanted to do, but during that time, it's kind of depressing, They all left. I was there by myself, no friends, no nothing. So I think small town, yeah. And it just progressed from there, and using every day, I would say, or every day that I could get it. And I wouldn't really.
And your drug of choice was pretty much opioids.
Yeah, pretty much any pills that I could get a hold of, mainly opiates. And if I could find a muscle relaxer too on top of that, I would. But I got to the point where I ended up. Well, I want to say it got pretty bad up until the point where I finally got accepted to go into the military. And I was going. I was like, well, this is great. I'll use it as I'll get clean. I didn't think of it as get clean. I didn't think I had a problem. Let's say it that way. So I joined the military. I go to boot camp for 2 months, and then I go to A school in Pensacola, Florida. For I want to say I was down there for 8 months, and during that time, just typical 21-year-old stuff, drinking. I had a bar on base. I never really had an issue with alcohol, but it was something to do, between the time waiting to get into class, because I was on hold for 6 months, and then class was 2 months. So I did that, got out, and then it was actually interesting because when I was, me and my wife now, we weren't married then, and she had planned our wedding, and I was supposed to be home a couple weeks before, and I ended up not making it because our class got pushed back another week. So we were getting married on Sunday. I had to pass a test on Friday, and if I didn't pass the test, I would have to wait till Monday to retake it. So if I didn't pass the test, I was going to miss my wedding. So I didn't want to do that. So I was pretty good at what I did. So I took the test, passed it. I left there Friday night, got home Saturday, surprised her, and we got married on Sunday. So then, My duty station was in Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, even though I was in the Navy. The plane I worked on was a modified Boeing 707. And, then I hadn't used that whole time that I was in school or in boot camp or anything like that. But as soon as I got back home for my 2 weeks before I went down to Tinker, I was high on my wedding. I mean, it's just one of those things. It was what I did. I didn't think it was an issue. And it's, interesting to look back now and see that, no, I have no idea why I did any of that, But I get down there, everything's going good. I really excel at my job. I was pretty good. I was wanting to make a career, but, on the weekends, I would use pills. And, but on that Sunday, I would clean out, make sure I was clean, That way I didn't, because there was random drug tests all the time. And it's kind of sad because, I really enjoyed it and I want to make a career, but I didn't realize the hold that drugs had on me at that time. And, I did my 4 years, and as I was getting out, or I decided to get out, and I used the excuse that my wife was driving back and forth to Oklahoma on the weekends.
Right.
Because she still lived in Kansas because she couldn't find a job that paid the amount that she made up here because of different certifications and stuff that they have down there. So I used that as an excuse that she was driving down with my 1-year-old son, so I got out. Well, it turns out,
you spent your 4 years in there, and then you thought you had it figured out, and maybe you did for a period of time where you just took them on the weekends.
Right.
Yeah, but every weekend, pretty much.
Pretty much every weekend. Yeah. And then if on times that I was on vacation or whatever, I would use the entire time, except for the last couple of days where I would flush my system out. And there was a couple close calls that I thought I had, and by the grace of God or whoever, or my own dumb luck, I made it and I didn't get caught or didn't do anything like that. And it's pretty sad because, like I said, I really enjoyed it and I really, excelled at it, but I didn't realize what could have came of it. I understood that if I would have been caught, I would have been kicked out, it would have been done, it would have been over with. I would have kind of been a disgrace in my own view at that time.
Because you're second generation Navy, yeah.
Actually, probably third. My grandfather was in the Navy.
Thank you for your service, by the way. I mean,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
But so I get out, and I wouldn't say I use every day, but I'd use mostly every day that I could. I got a job right away. That wasn't an issue. And then one of the biggest things that happened was my son, he was still a year old, but my wife got sick with Crohn's disease. And it was pretty rough. She was in the hospital quite a bit. She's almost died on a couple occasions, and that was a real big trigger for me, and that's when it really started to excel down into a really bad place, because trying to deal with her in the hospital, dealing with a 1-year-old son, and 2 and 3 at whatever time it was.
Right.
She's in the hospital for several weeks at a time, can't work, so I'm trying to juggle work, kid, home, everything to that. So it's just, it was this vicious cycle that pills just helped with that. At that time, they helped with that.
Or at least it helps with all the stress you thought. But you went from doing how many pills a day to, like you said, it just became much more of a problem.
Right. At that time, it was 2, 3, 4, 5 pills a day to, at its worst, 20, 30, upwards of more pills a day, Yeah. And her, like I said, her being in the hospital just made it even worse. And then, at that time, all right, well, I was working in Wichita. Well, I decided to leave that job because I was, staying up late at night and being late to work. Jobs don't like you being late. So I decided to come work here in El Dorado. I figured that would help. So I come back, I get a decent job in El Dorado. Well, again, that vicious cycle, being up late at night and being late to work, I got fired. So it's like, all right, well, the only job at the time was a traveling job. I was like, well, this is awesome. You know, I knew I had an issue, but I didn't realize how bad of an issue it was. I was like, well, I'll use this time to get clean. You know, I'll travel. I won't have any access. I won't know anybody. And, you know, the first time I was gone, you know, 27 days, I believe. And I was clean the entire time. It wasn't an issue. But the day I got back, in my mind, I bought more than I used. And I don't know why. You know, you figured you make it past the sickness, you make it past all that because I had to.
Right.
But in my mind, I wasn't ready to get clean. It wasn't ready. So that went on for a little while. I'd be home for a couple of weeks and then I'd travel again for 10 days, 20 days, never more than 30. Well, I ended up getting my wife pregnant during that time when I was traveling. So we were getting ready to have my daughter. So I stayed at that job until almost to her time she was born, and I got another job to where I stayed home. And so then, you know, the wife, she's pregnant. I have a different job, and she's getting ready to have the baby. And you know, this go around, I want to make it good. Well, with her disease and everything, the pregnancy wasn't that great. You know, she's having, I wouldn't say a tough time, but she didn't gain much weight just because of the way it is. And when she had our daughter, it was rough on her. She had our daughter, and a week later, she was in the hospital again. So it was just, you know, another thing. I have a brand new baby. I have a 5-year-old son at this time, and now I have an addiction on top of that, and it gets worse. You know, the more you use, the more your tolerance builds up, and so you're spending upwards of $200-300 a day just trying to survive, and then on top of that, home life, work life. Well,
And young males, they get a tolerance really fast, and also I notice males don't like to ask for help.
no,
Not until things get really bad.
no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I knew I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted help, but I was scared of the stigma of, you know, being a drug addict. I never thought myself as a drug addict. I always thought myself of being addicted, but I didn't want to be, you know, a drug addict. I didn't want to be, I didn't think I was as bad as the people I seen on TV. I used to watch Intervention thinking, oh man, I wish I could get the help they are, you know, but I don't want to ask for it. And at times I contemplated calling that number to see, you know, what to do, but I never did. You know, I was scared. I didn't want to be labeled as a drug addict because I figured it would hurt me. And even though I was hurting myself at the time, and
So you just figured you were going to be almost like a functional drug addict, even though I met people that can pull it off for a while, but it always spins out of control eventually. So.
Yeah, I would say I kept it in control for about 8 years, maybe 9, and then it just slowly started being a problem, losing good jobs, you know, pissing away money that we didn't have, you know, trying. And I guess the point to where it came to was I finally broke down and told my wife that I needed help. I mean, she knew about it the entire time.
Sure.
She wanted me to get help, and I finally broke down and told her, I was like, look, I don't know what to do. What do we do? And we talked about it, and the first thing we decided was to tell my parents about it. And that was a pretty difficult decision, or difficult choice and hard to do, but it ended up being the greatest thing that I could ever do, you know. Even though at first it wasn't, because I came out and I told him. My mom, she understood. My dad, you know, he's the type of guy at the time, well, why can't you just quit? Why just quit, be done? And I was like, well, I'd be fine, but, you know, it's not like that, you know. You don't want to be sick, you don't want to do this. So I told them, and they decided they were going to help me by, you know, helping me wean down. Like, I had them talked into it, and this is, you know, the addict brain. Well, I can con them into doing this.
Right.
So I had them talked into helping me wean down. So they would control the pills, and they would give them to me whenever I needed them, or then we'd step down and try to.
And these are pills you're buying off the streets, really. Yeah.
Or prescriptions they had, or something along those lines. You know, it was different things. And at this time, I still had a job, but I was using every dollar we had, to buy pills off the street. And even when they were helping me, I would go behind their back and I would buy pills, so it wasn't working like they thought. They thought everything was good because I wasn't telling them the truth. I wasn't being honest about it. And finally, we're having, of course, financial issues, and we're going to lose our house. So we decided we were going to sell our house. Well, we ended up figuring out that if we tried to sell our house, we'd lose money. And we didn't want to lose money, so we decided to rent it out. And when we rented it out, we rented it to somebody we knew, so that way at least it would be covered. And we ended up moving back in my parents' house. So my parents, me and my wife and my 2 kids, were living in my parents' house. They're trying to help me come off the pills. They're trying to do all this stuff to help me. And they during that time, they also talked me into quitting my job because I was lying to them, telling them that work wasn't paying me, or they cut my check, or he didn't do this, but really I was just cashing the check and going to buy drugs.
Right.
So finally, when it got to the point where I didn't have a job, didn't have access to any money, wife took me off all the accounts, anything. Well, in your desperate nature, what are you going to do? You're going to find anything and everything you can to get what you need. So I decided I'd practice my mother's signature. And I took her checks and I wrote checks. That first one, I knew I was going to get caught, but I didn't care. I did it anyways. I practiced her signature key. It wasn't $500,000. It was $150. Took it up there, cashed it. It worked.
Yeah.
Like, man, I was shaking when I come out of there, but I had it. I got what I needed and I felt good. And I was like, man, when you feel good, you tell yourself anything. And oh man, I was never going to do that again. It was terrible. I can't believe I did that. It's not in my nature to do anything like that. Well, next day comes around. I don't have what I need. I'm sick. That desperation comes in again. And I was like, well, just one more time. I'll do it one more time. Well, I ended up doing that, I want to say 5 or 6 times. And I guess then the bank, or my dad tried to pay a bill or something, and the bank realized he didn't have any money. So he's like, well, that can't be true. They're like, yeah, you got all these checks. He's like, what checks? So they sent him a print of all the checks that I had on in there in cash for all the cash. He's like, well, he knew right away that that wasn't my mom's signature, and that she wouldn't have wrote all those checks because of everything that was going on.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, the addict brain is just worried about the next 6 hours or the next day, and nothing's thought out beyond that. And you were able to be functioning just with that kind of attitude of just living literally to get through the day. And because of work ethic, you have a good work ethic and good skill set, you were able to pull it off for a long period of time, but still had nothing to show for it.
Not at all. I felt broken and alone, and definitely, scared. And when he finally got those checks, he told my mother he's just going to have me arrested and thrown in jail. And my mother came to me crying and, begging me to get help. And I knew I needed help. And like I told you, I didn't want to go to rehab because I didn't want that stigma. Well, that night I finally broke down and I found a rehab, Valley Hope up in Mound Ridge.
Yep.
And they told me I could come the next day. Well, I hadn't even told my wife. I didn't discuss with her or anything. I made the plan. I took it. I told them I'd be there tomorrow. And then I told my wife that night when she got home to work. I said, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to rehab tomorrow. She's like, what? What are you doing? I said, I got to go. I don't know what else to do. And of course, she knew that it was time because she basically told me if we didn't do anything that she was leaving me and taking the kids. And at that time, I didn't believe her or anything like that, but I think she was pretty serious, and finally made that choice, and woke up the next day and went to rehab.
Well done. Yeah. No, you pushed everything and everybody to about the limit.
Yeah, I would say so.
I guess you got to get uncomfortable enough to actually make a decision, and you did. So how was Valley Hope?
Valley Hope was a lifesaver. They definitely saved my life, with the help of myself, but they helped me, get past that first week. And once you get past that, it's up to you to make the change. And so when I was there, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was getting out of your comfort zone. And, you know, the type of person I used to be wouldn't talk in front of people. I wouldn't be sitting here with you today talking. I don't like talking in front of people. I don't like talking in front of groups. So I made the decision while I was there. I was like, well, I got to try something new, you know, because what I'm doing is not working. Excuse me. And so I decided to, every time they needed a volunteer to read, I would get up and do that. Or every time they needed somebody to get in front and talk, I would do that. You know, I decided to do something different because, like I said, what I was doing wasn't working. So getting out of my comfort zone and doing something different really changed. You know, they gave me the tools and they gave me the techniques to do it, but it was up to me to make the change.
Yeah, nobody said it was going to be easy, but you were willing now to make a sacrifice to like you said, be uncomfortable because you wanted it bad enough. Plus, I like the fact that you took ownership. I mean, you weren't playing the victim role. You weren't acting like it was everybody's fault or trying to hang your hat on whatever, you know, life stresses to not get help.
Right.
So,
yeah, because it wasn't anybody's fault but my own. You know, I didn't force anybody to, you know, give me pills or, you know, or anything like that. It was my own doing, and I wanted to do it for myself so I could be a better father to my kids and a better husband. I was never, you know, abusive, but, you know, when you're dope sick, you're angry. Nobody wants to be around you. I wasn't the greatest father. I mean, hell, when I was high, I was a pretty good father, but that was few and far between times, you know.
right.
I never neglected my kids or anything like that, but I wasn't there the way they needed me to be during their, you know, developmental years or anything like that. So I wanted to be that, you know, and when I went to treatment, my son asked me, well, why are you here, you know, and he was too young to really understand. So I told him I was going to a place to become a better father. So he definitely.
Which is true. It's true. Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of really eye-opening and kind of an amazing deal, but I don't know, it was probably 2 months out of treatment. My son told me he liked the way I was now, you know, that I was now versus the way I used to be. And that, you know, hit me pretty hard, you know. Yeah. It's kind of difficult, especially when they're so young and you realize you hadn't been there and the things that you had done. And it's just, it sucks because you got to reap what you sow. You know, you did it, so you got to make up for it. So that's, I mean, one of the things that I made in my deal, you know, every thing you do or action you have, you know, there's consequences to everything. And that's one thing about getting clean. Yeah, well, that's great. While you're in treatment, that's fine. You know, everything, you're on that, what they call the pink cloud. You get out, well, then life really hits you. You know, you got to make up for everything that you did, you know, all the money you lost, all the time you lost, you know. So trying to do those it's not easy, but it's worth it. And it's definitely, yeah, I mean, it's just definitely worth it. So,
well, good. So you made up for some lost time, at least. Like you said, you couldn't be the father you wanted to be because half the time you didn't feel good, or you had something else on your mind, like the constant chase. But then you did what you had to do, which is get yourself away from all the triggers and you did it. So, yeah, what is life on the other side?
Well, you know, life on the other side is, I would say, the best time ever because really, you know, you finally have money in your pocket, even though you're still paying back all the money you owe. You know, I finally can get up and get to work on time and all that. You know, I don't have to take anything to play with my kids or, you know, take them to the park or tell them, you know, oh, not right now, Daddy doesn't feel good. You know, it's just an amazing feeling being able to wake up and not worry about feeling good or what you're going to do to get what you need to survive that day. You know, having a good job, you know, being the husband you need to be. It's definitely, like I said, not easy, but it's well worth it. So, you know, you can be a better father. It's, yeah, life, I don't know.
Well, good. No, I mean, your kids are how old? Your boy and your girl?
9 years old and 5. My son's 9, my daughter's 5.
Yeah. No. you're there for them now. That's wonderful, and that's really when they need you most anyway. So there's so what does your life look like now? I mean, you got a steady job, you're saving money, you've got a good skill set. You know, is there anything you do to make sure you stay sober and stay strong?
Yeah, I mean, I do. When I first got out of treatment, I decided I was going to do the 90 and 90, 90 meetings in 90 days. And I think I made it to like 45, but then life kind of caught up with me. And it's kind of hard to make it to a meeting every day when you have a family and, you got to take care of or work or anything like that. So I still try to go to meetings as much as I can. I mean, during this coronavirus right now,
Right.
I've been to a couple, but I haven't been to as many as I would like to be. Again, it's just hard to find the time. Can't remember what life on the other side. Really, the financial issues. It's good having money, but it's not as easy because I still struggle. I guess my new addiction when I got out and got clean was I had money in my pocket, so I was, I'm going to buy something. Well, then it became an addiction to spending money.
Right.
I mean, I didn't blow all the money I had, but I would blow all the money I had at the time that I could get away with. I still paid my bills. I still did all that, but for any extra money, no. Stuff that I wanted or been putting off for a long time, I bought. And even 5 years later, been clean 5 years, or going on 5 years, I still struggle with that. I mean, the addictive personality's still there. It'll never go away, but I try to find ways to not do that. Remind myself that it'd be nice to pay these bills off versus going to buy the new whatever it is that day. So I don't think it really ever goes away. I mean, I know it won't. I still, think about using, but not. I wouldn't say think about using. I still, from time to time, find triggers that would, why I used or think of, fun times at the deal. But you also got to remember of the really bad times that you had or anything like that. So that always keeps me in check. I don't want to go back to that dark place that I was in. I would never say I was suicidal, but I didn't care if I died or not. It's one of those deals. If this truck crosses a line and hits me, I'd be okay with that. Everybody would be better off without me. But it's definitely not a struggle, but it's still something that I have to keep in check or else it'll go the other way real quick.
So did you notice something with your mindset? I mean, once drugs are out of your system for a longer period of time, did you notice with regard to anxiety or depression or helplessness it seems like people have to dry out to realize they're back in control, and they your mind has to stabilize before you are thinking, higher level thinking stuff like the future and have hope and can love again and those kind of things. Do you think do you feel different in that respect or?
Oh yeah, I want to say probably the first year, out of treatment, my anxiety was really high. And I tried different, SSRIs, but they would give me real bad headaches.
Okay.
So I had to find ways of dealing with my, my anxiety. And I really wouldn't say I was depressed during that time. It was mainly anxiety. And I think it was just more of finding ways to cope with everyday life to where used to I would, pop pills and nothing would bother me. But then, you got to face everything head on, just everyday struggles. So the first year was pretty rough, but then, I don't know, I think just finding different things that work for me between meditation or going to meetings or talking to other people about it really helped. And I really enjoyed helping other people when it comes to, sobriety or addiction or anything like that. But you got to be careful with that because it can also turn around and bite you because you feel, I sponsored somebody at one time. I think I had 3 years clean and, he turns around and he relapses and it was all my fault. The plan we had set in place, we tried to follow that plan and it became, it was all mine. Why did you do that? You did this. And it just makes you got to realize he just wasn't ready at that time, but that can really hurt your own sobriety if you're not careful. And so I kind of stepped back from that. I didn't think I was ready. I thought it was too early. So I still, with the meetings, I really enjoy doing, talking to people at meetings.
They're not going to get better while they're in that mindset that they're the victim or that it's somebody else's fault. But how convenient is that to blame the other people?
Right.
Then you don't have to work on anything. Then you don't have to take ownership of anything. So, no, your mindset certainly helps you. And then, like you said, the anxiety slowly starts to go away because you get out of being in crisis mode all the time, because when you're in crisis mode all the time, everything seems like, it's amplified, it seems like for death, even though it's not. So, yeah.
Yeah, because, still to this day, I still have anxiety, but I can recognize them and then address them at that point, with whatever I need to do, stop myself and, think, or stop what I'm doing at that time and find something else to calm me down, or to take a break, just to realize that I can't control everything. I used to want to control everything. I was a control freak. I had to do this. And that's, that vicious cycle. When my wife was sick, I had to control everything.
Right.
Control her being sick, the stuff at home, the kids, work. It was all about control. I used to cuss God because I didn't know, I figured, why would you do this? Why would you do this to her? Why would you do this to me? But now it's easy to step back and realize that I can't control everything. It's just, life's going to go on whether you're okay with it or not, and you're going to have to find ways to deal with it. So it's still an issue, but it's manageable. And you just got to find ways to help yourself manage it, because what worked for you is not going to work for me. So
true, and that's just like that serenity prayer they talk about, isn't it? Yeah, you got to let go of all the stuff you can't control. And I do see a lot of people like you that are very type A. They will kick butt at whatever job they do, but they try to control too much perhaps, and just can't do it. So
yeah, because in school, I wasn't a good student. Nothing interested me. Math wasn't interesting. Science was, if it's something that I liked at that time, or subject that I liked. But as soon as I got out of school, and joined the military, everything that I did was, what I wanted to do. So I really excelled at it. And, I haven't officially been diagnosed with ADHD, but I had a doctor at one time told me, my son is, and she said, well, I knew he would be because you are. And I was like, well, okay. And I think that has a lot to do because, anything that doesn't interest me, I don't want anything to do with. But stuff that does, I can focus on and really hammer down and excel at. And I'm not the greatest in anything, but I strive to be better than I was before. So,
that's the first element for improvement. Is just awareness and motivation to be better. So, and then I appreciate the fact that you've taken it to the next level and are out there helping others and telling your story for the sole purpose of sharing your experience and any other last tidbits of knowledge that you've already told people that it's worth it on the other side. It's not necessarily easy, and you've got to get uncomfortable.
You definitely got to do that. Yeah. Just know that it may not be easy, but it's definitely worth it. Just let things come to you as they will naturally. It's going to take time. Everything's not going to happen right away. Like I said, 5 years in, I still deal with issues, financial issues, everything like that. Yeah, granted, I still have money in my pocket, but there still are things that pop up. Still to this day, there's things in my past that pop up that I got to address. And 5 years later, there's still, I still figure things out that I did because of my addiction that I have to face, at that time. And it's, like I said, it's worth it if you want it. If you don't want it, then you're going to continue to do what you want. But I tell you, it is worth it, and you'll definitely thank yourself and nobody else for getting clean and sober. So,
well, wonderful. Wise words. Thank you, Kelsey, so much for helping and telling your story. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dr. Lakin is a board-certified family medicine doctor with an emphasis in addiction medicine and over 25 years of experience. For addiction recovery services in the Wichita area, please visit www.centerforchangeks.com or visit samhsa.gov for a national directory of resources and recovery centers in your area. You can also find these links in the podcast description. Thank you for listening to the Lakin Chronicles Road to Recovery podcast. And remember, you've got this.